My name is Lana Anderson, 29 years old, the kind of woman who still eats lunch standing at the sink because the counter is the only clean surface the sun hits at noon. Tuesday, 11:43 a.m., Bangkok time on the microwave, a plastic bowl of noodles steaming, the apartment quiet enough to hear my upstairs neighbor sneeze. That's when the phone rang. Unknown number, out of state. I almost let it die. I wish I had. Hello, is this Lana Anderson? The voice was all business. Smooth edges, no warmth. This is Tracy from Silver Oak Mortgage Servicing. We're calling about the delinquent balance on your mortgage. We've mailed several notices. What mortgage? I laughed, a brittle little sound that hit the cabinet and fell to the floor. The property at 412 Lavender Drive. You are listed as the primary borrower. Current outstanding. Stop. My hand gripped the counter hard enough to blanch the knuckles. I rent a 600-square-foot apartment, and my bed is still on the floor. I don't own a couch, let alone a house. A pause. Paper rustled like a small storm. Can I verify your birth date and social? I gave them, because what else do you do when the world tilts? She repeated them back. They matched. All of it matched. For a heartbeat, the apartment tunneled, walls stretching, air thinning. My brain repeated a small, frantic no like a metronome. A year and a half ago, a mortgage in my name. 10 months later, default. A foreclosure clock already ticking. Who co-signed? I heard my voice from far away. Co-signer listed as Gregory Anderson, my father. The noodles went cold. I hung up, dialed his number, listened to the old ringtone that always made me think of umbrellas and wet sidewalks. Lana, he answered, sounding mildly inconvenienced, like I'd interrupted a nap he hadn't earned. What's up? Did you put me on a mortgage? Silence. The kind that has weight and smell. Then too quickly. Why would you think that? Because the bank just called me about a house I apparently own. Guess who else is on it? Another silence, this one longer. The kind where all the history we never resolve sits between us like a second language. Look, calm down, it's not a big deal. My laugh cracked. Identity theft and a $500,000 loan isn't a big deal? That's not a misunderstanding, Dad, that's fraud. Somewhere in the background, a voice drifted into my ear. Light, familiar, always unbothered. Rachel. My sister. Younger by 5 years and forever the family hurricane whose debris my mother arranged into art. She needed help, he said finally. You used an old power of attorney, didn't you? I whispered. The one I signed at 18 so you could handle a student loan appeal. We handled it. My mother's voice floated in now, the soft fog to his stone. You weren't using your credit for anything important. I had to sit. The chair scraped the tile with a sound like a reprimand. An hour later, I had a fraud affidavit drafted. I'd frozen my credit, filed with the FTC. The acronyms stacked up like sandbags in a flood that already had furniture floating. It wasn't enough. Not yet. I stared at the bowl of noodles and thought of 412 Lavender Drive, a house I'd never seen but was somehow sinking into like quicksand. I thought of Rachel in yoga pants and ring light reflections, a brunch laughter soundtrack piped into a life my credit had apparently paid for. I thought of the quiet part of me, the old, obedient daughter who had always written the check and said nothing. That girl was done. I texted Jenna Price, a friend from college who had turned into the kind of attorney people whisper about in hallways. Identity theft, elder abuse, messes no one wants to touch. Emergency. Call when free? She called in 6 minutes, listened without interrupting. Lana, she said, voice clean as glass. We can do this the neat way or the loud way. Your call. What's the neat way? Affidavits, complaint, give Silver Oak a chance to fix their mess. If they stonewall, we go loud. Injunction, discovery, depositions. But either way, you do not carry their debt. I exhaled. There's one more thing, I said, hating that the words tasted like old jealousy. I might have a contact inside Silver Oak's compliance team. Use it if you trust it. I pictured Alicia, razor smart, composed. The woman who used to share a Sunday coffee with Evan, my boyfriend, and a future he outgrew. She and I had never been enemies, just an awkward footnote we avoided reading. When Evan and I got serious, Alicia drifted to another coast and another job. Apparently, not far enough. Evan texted as if he'd felt my stomach drop from across the city. Everything okay? I stared at the screen. He knew most of my family history. The gilded pedestal Rachel stood on, the permanent stool I was handed. But not all of it. Not the debt disguised as loyalty. Not the night Mom said, "You're strong, honey," while sliding another bill across the table. Not okay, but fixable, I typed. Call later? Another incoming call. Rachel. I declined it, because if I listened now, she would pour sugar on gasoline and call the fire a misunderstanding. I was done confusing sweetness with safety. I pulled my folder from the top shelf. Birth certificate copies, old POA, my meticulous credit history, a catalog of all the times I had been responsible, because someone in this family had to be. I added fresh printouts, FTC identity theft report, credit freeze confirmations, notes from the call with Tracy, a plain manila thing, thicker by the minute, heavy enough to bruise. The apartment felt too small for rage, too tidy for grief. I stood in the doorway and watched the afternoon light move across the floorboards like a slow apology. Then I booked a flight, under the radar. No, hey, I'm coming. No chance to spin a narrative or rehearse a cry. Just me, a rental Camry, and a folder that looked like a quiet bomb. On the plane, I wrote a list I never thought I'd write. Refinance. Rachel alone, I'm removed. Legal fees, paid by the people who forged me. Apology, not because I need it, but because they need to practice saying the word. I slept badly. Woke with my jaw sore from clenching. Landed to rain that came down in sheets, windshield wipers metronoming a rhythm I could breathe to. By the time I pulled onto Lavender Drive, the clouds were lifting, the kind that pretend at mercy after they've done the damage. The house was exactly as I imagined. Oversized windows reflecting a sky that didn't belong to any one person, a manicured lawn pretending struggle never visited. Rachel's white Mercedes slouched in the driveway like a pet that had never been told no. I knocked once. The door rattled. She opened it with a smile trained for cameras. It slipped when she saw the folder. "Lana! Oh my God, what a surprise!" She ushered me in on autopilot, voice already drifting towards smoothie offers and turmeric cleanses. The entryway smelled like eucalyptus and expensive indecision. "I'm here to talk about the mortgage." My voice surprised me, steady, almost gentle. That's the thing about fury when you finally hand it a clipboard. It becomes organized. A micro glitch on her face. "It was a team decision," she chirped. "You weren't using your credit." "You didn't ask for my credit," I said, stepping into a living room curated by someone who charges per pillow. "You stole it." From the hallway, footsteps. Of course. My parents. My mother already a cloud of apology. My father a wall of, "let's be reasonable," which always meant be quiet for me. I set the folder on the marble island like a meal we all had to eat. "Here's what happens now," I said. "You refinance this loan in your name only. I'm removed. You cover my legal fees." Rachel's smile thinned. "I can't qualify." "That sounds like a you problem," I said softly, "not a me consequence." My father folded his arms. "You don't need to be so aggressive." "Dad, you used a power of attorney I signed at 18 to forge me into a $523,000 mortgage." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The paper did it for me. My mother's eyes filled too fast to be real tears. "We gave you life, Lana. And then you tried to lease it out," I said. The rain started again, light, insistent, ticking the windows like a clock. In the pause, a future arranged itself in my head with the clean lines of a blueprint. Courtrooms, signatures, a judge's clipped syllables, the sound of something final. I gathered the folder. "You can talk to Jenna," I said, and slid a card across the island. "From now on, you talk to her." On my way out, Rachel tried the old tone, the one that used to turn me into an unpaid stagehand in the theater of her life. "You wouldn't let your sister go down for this, would you?" I opened the door. The air smelled like wet stone in relief. "You let me," I said, "for 10 months. Outside, the rain was softer, the sky brighter. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. "I'm here when you want to talk. No fixing, just listening." And then another, unexpected. "Alicia. Saw your name in an internal ping. If you want me to route this for a clean review, I can. Professional only." I stared at her message, tasting the old awkwardness, the new necessity. This was going to get messy before it got neat. But for the first time since 11:43 a.m., I felt the floor stop cracking. I typed, "Yes. Professional review would help. Thank you." Then I put the phone away, started the Camry, and pointed the nose of the car toward whatever came next. Neat or loud, Jenna had said. I had a feeling it was going to be both. By the time I parked across from 412 Lavender Drive, the rain had stopped, but the air still smelled metallic, like something recently broken. I sat in the car for a full minute, engine off, watching the house through the windshield. 3 stories, cream stucco, modern windows with those smug black frames that scream, "I overpay for minimalism." The kind of house my sister Rachel would call manifested. And me, I called it collateral damage. I checked the passenger seat. The manila folder lay there like a weapon wrapped in politeness. Notarized affidavits, bank statements, and screenshots that could slice through denial cleaner than glass. I wasn't just here for answers. I was here for proof. I took a deep breath, straightened my jacket, and walked to the door. Rachel opened it before I even knocked a second time. She looked the same. Hair in a glossy wave, leggings that probably cost more than my rent. That effortless influencer glow that came from believing the world was one long sponsored post. "Lana! Oh my God, look at you!" She spread her arms wide like we were in some tearful reunion montage. "I had no idea you were in town." "Surprise," I said flatly. Her eyes darted to the folder under my arm. Her smile wavered, just for a second, before reassembling itself. "Come in, want a smoothie? I just made a pineapple detox one with chia seeds and—" "I'm not here for a smoothie." The words sliced the air. Inside, the place looked like Pinterest had thrown up on it. Fake plants, white couches, a wall sign that read, "Good vibes only." I wanted to laugh, because if vibes could pay the mortgage, maybe she wouldn't be in this mess. Rachel glanced toward the kitchen where her phone sat face down. "You look tense," she said softly. "Maybe we can talk about whatever's bothering you." "What's bothering me," I said, setting the folder on the countertop, "is that I just got a call from a bank telling me I'm delinquent on a mortgage for this house, in my name." Her face twitched just slightly. "Oh, that. Yeah, that." She folded her arms like she'd practiced the gesture in a mirror. "It was a family decision, Lana. We all agreed. You weren't using your credit. Mom and Dad said it was okay." "I never agreed," I said. "You forged my name." Rachel laughed, but it came out wrong. Too high-pitched, too thin. "Oh, come on. Don't make it sound criminal. It's not like we stole money from you. You're just on paper." "That's exactly what theft is, Rachel. It's on paper." Her jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, opening the folder and laying out the copies one by one. The forged signature, the outdated power of attorney, the bank statements. "I'm being prepared." The front door creaked. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. My parents. Mom's voice floated in first, soft and trembling. "Lana, honey, what's going on?" Dad followed, his tone clipped. "Why are you ambushing us like this?" I looked at him. "Ambush? You forged my signature on a $500,000 loan, Dad. You made me a criminal on paper." His nostrils flared. "You're overreacting. We were helping your sister get back on her feet." "By ruining mine?" He folded his arms, the universal Anderson signal that a conversation was over before it began. "You're still young. You can recover. Your credit will bounce back." I laughed. "You make it sound like a bruise, not a foreclosure." Rachel's tone turned defensive. "We thought you'd understand. You're always so independent. You've got that job, that boyfriend, that whole responsible life." "Exactly," I said coldly, "which is why you thought I wouldn't notice until it was too late." Dad stepped forward. "Enough. Lower your voice." I turned to him, my voice steady but sharp. "You used a power of attorney I signed at 18 for a student loan appeal and used it to buy your favorite child a house. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud." "Don't use that word," Mom said quickly, eyes wide. "It sounds so ugly." "It is ugly." The silence stretched, heavy and brittle. Finally, Rachel tried again. "What do you want, Lana? Money? I can't refinance right now. My credit's shot, but maybe if we give it time—" "No." I slid a document toward her. "You refinance this house in your name. You pay every legal fee. You send me written proof you've done it." Dad scoffed. "You're not suing your own family." I looked him dead in the eye. "I already have a lawyer. Her name's Jenna. You'll be hearing from her soon." Rachel paled. "Lana, wait!" "No." I gathered the folder and shut it with a satisfying snap. "You should have waited before forging my name." I turned toward the door, but Mom caught my wrist. Her eyes shimmered with tears, the kind she always conjured at the perfect dramatic moment. "We gave you life, sweetie. And then you signed it away," I whispered, shaking her hand off. When I stepped outside, the evening light hit my face, cool and sharp. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I got into the Camry, heart pounding so hard it felt like it wanted out. My phone buzzed again, a message from Alicia. I reviewed the initial file. "Something's off with the notary stamp. I'll run it quietly and keep you posted." Below it, a text from Evan. "Dinner tonight, or do you want space?" I smiled faintly. He asks, they assume, I thought. Space tonight, but thank you. Then another message from an unknown number. Rachel here. Please stop whatever you're doing. The bank called. They're auditing the loan. You're going to ruin everything. I stared at it until the words blurred. No, Rachel, you already did. I pressed delete. Then I started the engine. The neat way, Jenna had said. Or the loud way. For the Anderson family, neat was already off the table. 3 days after walking out of that house, I got an email from Jenna that started with one word: progress. Attached was a PDF, the kind of document you can practically hear rustle when you open it. Silver Oak Mortgage had acknowledged the fraud report and was launching an internal review. Translation: they were scrambling. And the reason they were scrambling had a name: Alicia Barnes, Evan's ex-girlfriend, my unexpected ally. She'd called me the night before, voice low, precise. Lana, this stays between us. I pulled the original loan file. It's a disaster. What do you mean? I asked. Forgery levels of disaster, she said. The notary seal used on your signature belongs to a woman named Margaret Boyd. She left the real estate industry 6 years ago. She runs a dog rescue in Arizona now. Her license expired before this loan ever existed. My pulse jumped. You're sure? Positive. That's strike one. She paused, and I could hear her typing. Strike two. Your income verification. According to the file, you're listed as a senior software engineer making $147,000 a year. I almost laughed. I've never made more than 63, and I work in logistics. Exactly. It's fake. The letterhead company doesn't exist. Strike three. Payment records show all mortgage payments were drafted from an account belonging to Gregory and Linda Anderson, your parents. So Rachel never paid a dime. Not one. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The weight of it all pressed down like humidity before a storm. So they used my name, my credit, their money, and Rachel's entitlement to buy a house none of them could afford? Pretty much. I rubbed my temple. What happens now? Alicia hesitated. Silver Oak will cooperate with your lawyer. They'll freeze foreclosure until the fraud is resolved. But Lana... What? You didn't hear this from me, but your sister tried to sweet-talk a junior compliance officer into pausing the audit. Claimed it was all a family misunderstanding. I let out a long breath. She doesn't know how to stop digging. She's about to learn. After hanging up, I texted Jenna everything Alicia had told me. Within the hour, Jenna filed an injunction to halt the foreclosure process until the investigation was complete. That meant Silver Oak couldn't legally come after me while the fraud case was open. And just like that, the tide started to turn. A week later, I sat across from Evan at a dim Thai restaurant, stirring a bowl of curry I couldn't taste. He reached across the table, brushing his thumb over my wrist. You've been somewhere else all night, he said gently. I'm just processing, I admitted. It's like finding out your parents borrowed your life and forgot to give it back. He smiled sadly. You always protect everyone, even people who hurt you. Maybe this time you protect yourself. I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say I was trying, but all I could do was nod. His phone buzzed, lighting up the table. I caught the name before he flipped it face down. Alicia Barnes. Our eyes met. He opened his mouth to explain, but I beat him to it. It's okay, I said. She's helping with the case. He hesitated. You sure you're okay with that? Honestly, not really, I said. But I'm more interested in justice than jealousy right now. That got a small, sad laugh out of him. That's very you. The next morning, Rachel called again, twice, then sent a long voice message dripping with faux calm. Lana, please call me back. The bank's threatening foreclosure. They're saying I have to refinance or sell. Mom's crying nonstop. You're ruining our family's reputation. Can't you just undo this? I listened to it once, then forwarded it to Jenna with the note. Evidence of continued manipulation. 2 days later, Jenna texted me. They offered Rachel a refinance. She didn't qualify. Credit score 531. I snorted. Even payday lenders would laugh at that. Next, they offered a short sale. She refused. Said, quote, I manifested this house. Manifested a felony, I muttered. Silver Oak's patience evaporated quickly. They filed notice of intent to foreclose, naming Gregory Anderson and Rachel Anderson as primary defendants, not me. For the first time in months, my name wasn't in the crosshairs. When I read the notice, something in me finally unclenched. I walked to my balcony that night, rain soft against the windows, city lights blurring in the distance. The relief was quiet but heavy, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for too long. But beneath it, there was still something else. Anger. Not the kind that burns, the kind that focuses. I wasn't finished. Jenna called the next morning. The bank's moving fast. We'll need you to appear at the foreclosure hearing next week. It's mostly procedural, but, she smiled through the phone. I think you'll enjoy seeing their faces when they realize they're officially out of excuses. I leaned against the window, heart steady for the first time since that phone call at 11:43 a.m. I'll be there, I said. She paused. Wear something blue. Judges like blue. Makes you look composed. I laughed. After everything, that's what you're worried about? Always plan the optics, Lana, Jenna said, especially when the guilty ones thrive on appearances. The call ended. I stared at my reflection in the glass, tired, a little bruised, but still standing. I thought of Rachel's designer furniture, my father's dismissive tone, my mother's trembling hands, and I thought of how, for the first time, none of that scared me anymore. If they wanted to see composed, I'd give them composed. If they wanted quiet, I'd give them truth instead. The hearing was coming, and this time it would be their turn to explain themselves. The day of the hearing dawned gray and heavy, the kind of morning that smelled like wet pavement and reckoning. I left my apartment early, dressed in a navy blazer just like Jenna had suggested, calm, controlled, impossible to rattle. When I met her outside the courthouse, she handed me a coffee and said, "You ready to watch a family implode under oath?" I managed a thin smile. I've been ready since the day they signed my name. We walked into the courtroom together. The benches creaked, the fluorescent lights hummed, and sitting 3 rows ahead, like a tableau of misplaced confidence, were my parents and Rachel. Rachel looked like she'd stepped out of a reality show. White blazer, too bright lipstick, heels that clicked on the marble floor like punctuation marks. My father wore his best suit, chin high, the face of a man who still believed authority was a shield. My mother clutched her purse like it contained forgiveness she could hand out if things went bad. When Rachel's eyes met mine, she froze. No smile this time. No smoothie offers. Just recognition. That cold, dawning realization that the story had flipped and I wasn't the supporting character anymore. Jenna leaned close. "Don't look away," she whispered. "They need to see who they did this to." The judge entered. Everyone rose. Papers rustled, chairs shifted, tension crackled in the air like static. The bank's attorney, a woman named Vanessa Torres, spoke first. Efficient, precise, her voice had that smooth, practiced rhythm of someone who's done this 100 times. Your Honor, Silver Oak Mortgage seeks to proceed with foreclosure against the defendants, Gregory and Rachel Anderson, due to persistent default. The plaintiff, Ms. Anderson, has been removed from liability pending a verified fraud investigation. We are here to formalize that release. Her words hit like clean strikes, each one landing exactly where it should. Then Jenna rose. Her tone was colder, sharper, legal steel wrapped in calm. Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself. My client's identity was used without consent. The documents contain a notary seal belonging to a woman who left the field 6 years prior. The income verification is falsified, and payment records confirm the defendants made every payment until they ran out of funds, at which point they allowed foreclosure to fall solely on Ms. Anderson's record. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was exploitation. The judge nodded, flipping through the file in front of him. He didn't rush, didn't frown, just read. Then he looked up. Do the defendants have anything to say? Rachel stood first. Her voice trembled, but she was performing, the kind of tremble designed to make people lean in. Your Honor, she began, this house is my home. I built memories there. I decorated it myself. I was told my sister wanted to help me. I thought it was a family agreement. I didn't realize... The judge cut her off. Ms. Anderson, is your name on the income verification documents? She hesitated. No. Did you ever make payments from your own account? No, but my parents... And did you seek your sister's consent before placing her on a mortgage exceeding $500,000? Rachel's mouth opened, then closed again. No, she whispered. The judge turned to my father. Mr. Anderson, did you submit a power of attorney form on your daughter's behalf? My father cleared his throat. Yes, but it was signed years ago. We didn't think... So it was not executed for this loan specifically? He shifted. No. The judge leaned back, sighing quietly. Then I have heard enough. The gavel didn't fall. It didn't need to. His tone did the work. The court hereby authorizes foreclosure against the listed defendants, Gregory and Rachel Anderson. Ms. Lana Anderson is officially released from liability pending final resolution of the fraud case. Silver Oak Mortgage retains the right to pursue damages against the parties responsible for the forged documents. It was over in under 15 minutes. The silence that followed was suffocating. Rachel's face drained of color, Mom's lip quivered, Dad's jaw tightened in fury, not shame. When the judge dismissed the room, I stood slowly. Jenna gathered the papers with deliberate calm, slid them into her briefcase, and whispered, "One chapter closed." As we walked down the courthouse steps, the drizzle had started again. A soft, steady rain that felt less like punishment and more like cleansing. Behind me, I heard my father's voice. "You didn't have to do this." I turned. "You're right," I said, "but you left me no choice." Mom stepped forward, eyes pleading. "You've humiliated your sister." "She humiliated herself," I said evenly. "You both just helped her do it faster." Rachel stood on the top step, soaked mascara carving black lines down her cheeks. For once, she didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't perform. She just looked small, and maybe for the first time, real. Jenna nudged me toward the car. "Let's go, before your mother starts a scene." We drove in silence for a while, wipers sweeping slow arcs across the windshield. The courthouse receded in the rearview mirror, but the weight in my chest didn't. I stared out the window, voice low. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but I just feel empty. Jenna glanced at me. "That's normal. Justice doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels quiet." I nodded, watching raindrops race down the glass. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with a cup of tea going cold in my hands. The court order lay on the table beside me, official, final, freeing. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't have to look to know who it was. Rachel's voice came through in a cracked whisper. "You really did it. You let them take everything." I closed my eyes. "No, Rachel, you gave everything away." She started to cry. "You've ruined us." "No," I said softly. "I stopped you from ruining me." Then I hung up. The silence afterward wasn't comfortable, but it was mine. And for the first time since that Tuesday morning call, I didn't feel like I was falling anymore. But Jenna was right. One chapter had closed. The next one, the one about consequences, was just beginning. 2 weeks after the hearing, I woke up to an email from Jenna with the subject line, "Time to go on offense." Inside was the draft of a civil suit, one that made my breath catch. Damages for identity theft, credit destruction, emotional distress, and lost financial opportunities. Total claim, $215,000. For years, I'd been the family fixer, the one who made things disappear quietly. But this was the first time I was the storm. I texted Jenna, "File it." Within 48 hours, Rachel and my parents were officially served. No warnings, no heads up, just paperwork that hit their doorstep like karma in an envelope. And the fallout was nuclear. Rachel left me a 6-paragraph voicemail, alternating between sobs and rage. "Lana, how could you do this? I'm your sister. You're actually suing family over paperwork? Do you have any idea what this stress is doing to Mom?" I didn't reply, but I saved it. Jenna said it was useful, proof of ongoing guilt manipulation. My dad sent me a 1-line email. "We gave you everything. Is this how you repay us?" I forwarded it straight to Jenna with the subject, Entitlement Exhibit A. But the real surprise came 3 days later, from Uncle Rob. I hadn't seen him in years. Mom's younger brother, the quiet one who always stayed out of family politics. He texted me out of the blue. "Saw what happened. Coffee this weekend? My treat." I went, more out of curiosity than anything. We met at a diner overlooking the lake, the kind of place that still smelled like burnt toast and honesty. He slid a thick folder across the table before the waitress even poured my coffee. "Been meaning to show you this for a while," he said. Inside were trust documents, our grandparents' trust. Turns out, when they passed, they'd left money for all the grandkids, equally, but only one grandkid had been taking withdrawals. Rachel, $118,000 before she turned 25, Uncle Rob said calmly, stirring his coffee. "Your parents told me she needed it for career development. She burned through it on retreats, cars, and that damn house decor." I felt my throat tighten. I never saw a dollar. He gave a short laugh. "I know, that's why I kept copies. Figured one day the truth would matter." For the first time, I realized not everyone in the family had been blind. Some just stayed quiet until someone lit the match. "Will you testify if it goes to court?" I asked. He nodded. "Gladly." Jenna's reaction when I told her was immediate and delighted. "That's gold," she said. "Character witness and financial evidence? We're not just winning, Lana, we're setting precedent." And that's when the offers started. First came a $20,000 settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. "No admission of guilt," their lawyer wrote. Jenna didn't even blink. "Add another zero, or don't waste our time." Next came a $60,000 offer. The NDA was gone, but the apology clause was still missing. Jenna smiled, shark smooth. We'll wait. A week later, Rachel showed up at my workplace. No warning, just appeared in the lobby. Perfect hair, trembling lips, desperation disguised as innocence. People stared as she clutched her designer purse like a life raft. Lana, she said, voice breaking, please, just talk to me. I followed her to the hallway, keeping my distance. 5 minutes, I said. Her mascara was flawless. The tears hadn't dared ruin the performance. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You're my sister. I'm doing this because you committed fraud, I said quietly. You wrecked my credit, my name. You made me responsible for your debt, and you never once apologized. She blinked fast. I thought you were strong enough to handle it. Dad said, Dad was wrong. She swallowed hard. You're suing us. That's cruel. I stepped closer, voice low and steady. What's cruel, Rachel, is watching your own family destroy you and calling it love. Her eyes glistened, that same old manipulative shimmer. You wouldn't really go through with this, would you? I already have, I said. And here's the part you need to understand. I let the silence stretch until she looked up. I don't owe you a relationship. I don't owe you silence. And I definitely don't owe you forgiveness. Her face crumpled. I don't even know who you are anymore. I smiled. Small, tired. True, that's the idea. Then I walked back to my office, leaving her standing in the hallway, frozen in her designer guilt. A week later, Jenna called. Their lawyer just made a new offer, she said, her voice almost smug. $150,000 and a written apology, voluntary, no NDA. No, I closed my eyes. Relief rolled through me. Not triumph, just release. We'll take it. She nodded. I'll finalize the paperwork. You'll have the funds within 48 hours. 2 days later, $150,000 hit my account. Clean, legal, final. A letter followed soon after, signed by Gregory, Linda, and Rachel Anderson. It read, We acknowledge our role in the actions that harmed Lana Anderson. We regret the pain caused by our decisions and take full responsibility for our lapse in judgment. It was short, sanitized, written by lawyers, but it was enough. For the first time, the people who had treated my silence like consent finally admitted what they'd done. I didn't call them, didn't reply, didn't even open the letter fully. I just photographed the signature page and saved it in a digital folder labeled "In case they forget." Then I blocked their numbers. Jenna texted, We won, but the truth was simpler. I didn't win, I ended it. And sometimes, that's the only victory worth chasing. 3 months passed before the silence started to sound like peace instead of aftermath. I didn't notice it at first. It crept in slowly. Mornings without dread, the first laugh that didn't taste bitter, the kind of sleep that wasn't interrupted by phantom phone vibrations. The $150,000 settlement sat untouched in my account, except for the portion I used to pay Jenna's fees. The rest stayed there, not as revenge money, but as proof. Proof that I could build a future without their permission. One Saturday morning, I signed the papers for a small condo. 2 bedrooms, 1 balcony, no drama. All in my name. When the pen left the page, I felt something lift off my chest, quiet but definite, like a storm cloud deciding it had poured enough. The realtor congratulated me. I smiled, shook her hand, and thought, this is the first key in my life that no one else can copy. That night, I sat on the bare floor of my new living room, surrounded by unopened boxes and half-assembled furniture. The city lights blinked through the window, washing everything in soft amber. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Proud of you. You did the hard thing. You didn't just win. You changed the rules. I stared at his text, smiling faintly. He'd been patient through all of it. Through the paperwork, the depositions, the family implosions. Never pushed, never tried to fix what he couldn't. Just stayed steady. Dinner at my place tomorrow, he added. No lawyers, just us. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. A few minutes later, another notification appeared. Alicia. Case officially closed. Silver Oak issued their final report. Confirmed fraudulent origination. Borrower fully exonerated. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I finally typed, Thank you. For everything. You didn't have to help, but you did. She replied almost instantly. Call it professional redemption. Besides, Evan always said you were the one who actually finishes things. I smiled. It didn't sting anymore. Not the way it once might have. The triangle had dissolved, leaving only mutual respect and a strange sense of closure I hadn't expected. Later, as the city quieted, I opened my laptop. There was one more thing I needed to do. Over the months of hearings and settlements, I had kept a journal. Every call, Every signature, every insult disguised as advice, I turned it into a post for a financial survivors forum. My parents forged my name on a mortgage. My sister lived in a house I was paying for without knowing it. Here's how I fought back, and what I learned about boundaries, love, and silence. I removed names. I blurred dates. I wrote it not for revenge, but for the people still trapped in their own family-shaped cages. By morning, the post had blown up. Tens of thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments. People shared stories that mirrored mine. Sons whose parents opened credit cards in their names. Daughters who co-signed loans just to help. Brothers who were told, "You're stronger, you'll recover." Reading them, I realized the same thing over and over. Family loyalty, when weaponized, becomes a leash. And sometimes the bravest act of love is cutting it. Weeks later, I got a letter from Uncle Rob, handwritten, no envelope fancy enough to hide sincerity. "Lana, proud of you. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You reminded the rest of us what accountability looks like. Your grandparents would have called it courage. P.S. The old house at the lake? Still in the family trust. Your name's on the deed now. Use it for something honest." I folded the letter and pressed it against my chest. Honest. It had been so long since anyone used that word around my family without irony. On my first night in the condo, I lit a candle and left the windows open. The air smelled like rain again. A softer kind, the forgiving kind. I thought about Rachel sometimes, not in anger, just in curiosity. Last I'd heard, she'd moved in with a friend, posting quotes about healing energy and starting over. Maybe she was learning, maybe she wasn't. It didn't matter anymore. I didn't need closure from her. I'd already written my own. When people talk about forgiveness, they make it sound like opening a door. For me, forgiveness was locking one, not out of hate, but out of understanding. Some doors don't deserve to swing both ways. Months later, Jenna visited for coffee. She looked around my new place, impressed. "You did it," she said, smiling, "and you didn't even frame the apology letter." I laughed. "It's somewhere in my files, just in case they ever forget." She grinned. "Good, but now you get to build, not defend." When she left, I stood by the window, mug in hand, watching the city glow. Steady, indifferent, alive. This wasn't victory. It was aftermath. The good kind. The kind where nothing's owed, nothing's pending, and nothing's forged. I looked down at the key on my coffee table. Solid, simple, mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's daughter or someone's sister. Just Lana Anderson. Unowned, unapologetic, free.